Word spotting. Word spotting is interesting. If you take a recorded phone call, and then what you need, and I'm going to wave my hands a little freely here because it's a lot more difficult than I talk about here, but you reach into a recorded phone call, then you turn the text, you turn the speech into text. Okay, pulling speech, turning speech into text is difficult, but if you've got the right algorithms, and a lot of people have been building up some very proprietary and very sophisticated engines in order to do this, you take this conversation, you turn it into text. Well, once you've got it into text, you can index it, and then you can search for it and you look for keywords. When you're looking for, once you've got it into text, you're good. So you can take a conversation that's been digitized and turned into text, and you look for single words or phrases, multiple phrases, depending upon how detailed, how sophisticated you want your rule set to be. Word spotting is the hot tool for contact centers right now because, of course, they store all the conversations with agents. You call into a call center, and you hear your call may be monitored at any time, or this call is monitored for quality control purposes. Well, they're recording it. No two ways about it. They're recording it. It's getting stored on a disk somewhere. Now, what's happening is that they can dig through all those calls on a batch job every night, and they can find good experiences, the wow experiences. You can find bad experiences. How many people have uttered profanity when they've been on the phone with a call center? Oh, come on. Yeah, I see. Yeah, there ought to be at least a quarter of those hands that'll fess up to it. When you look at, profanity, along with looking at emotion detection, being able to spot spikes in people's voices based upon tone, or spot the emotion in somebody's voice, you can filter out an index on that as well. And then, of course, again, competitors' offers, so you're looking at a lot of that. FedEx. You call FedEx and you go, wow! You're likely to end up to being a call a month for somebody. You might actually end up earning somebody at FedEx a bonus. FedEx searches all inbound calls to their call center for wow, not, oh wow, this is cool, man. They look for the word wow several times within their recorded calls, and they look for that emotion spike. They're looking for people who are really impressed with a call agent. Those calls are identified every night, and they're marked off, and they take the files, the MP3s or whatever they have, and they mark them off for training purposes. So new call center agents can listen to those fresh calls and learn how to be better call center agents. And then the one thing that vendors wouldn't talk to me about, but I know they do it. They got to do it. People use profanity. You want to look, if you're in a call center, you want to look at the angry customer. You want to look at whether or not the guy's answering the phone. Why is there a problem with this call? Is it bad customer because he's profane or highly sensitive? I know that whenever I get on the phone with Verizon, my blood pressure spikes about 5 points and I start swearing, and I don't know why. I just can't control myself. Yeah, I know, it's a phone company. You should always do that. Or is it a bad business process? Is it a bad product? Or does the agent need to improve or polish the way he handles the customer? Word spotting for real-time competitive intelligence. Like I said, inbound calls are a massive source of data on customer and market trends, and they're used. Word spotting is used for competitive intelligence. Look for the name or mention of a competitor, or mention a special offer, great offer, or other type of switch. Let me give you a real-world example. I switched from my long-distance phone service from AT&T to one of those over to Cox's cable service for a flat rate. And I had to call up AT&T, don't ask me why. I had to call up AT&T in order to cancel my long-distance service on the phone line. And the first question, he goes, well, why are you leaving us? I said, well, I got an offer from Cox because they got a better, because I got a flat rate price. Guess what? That information's recorded along with all the other cancellation calls, and every night they crunch through it. And companies can look at this every, look at the batch run, the resulting report in the morning, and identify in real time, is somebody doing an offer in a certain part of the country that cutting into our business? Okay, they can identify that, they can respond to that, and they can modify their marketing and sales strategies in near real time rather than 5 to 10 months later with sales down by 5 to 10%. And then, of course, you can also use the data to generate things like profiles of good customers or bad or trouble customers. Let's get this. One of the companies that's in this business is a company called Nice Systems. They're traded on NASDAQ. They made $311 million last year. They're what I call the Microsoft of voice analytics. Some people may argue with me about that, but they've got 23,000 customers they lay claim to with all of their products, including 75 of the Fortune 100. And their customers include American Express, Citibank, FedEx, Home Depot, Nextel, Time Warner, and Vodafone. And the interesting thing when they talk about their voice analytics solution, they emphasize the fact that they improve business and operational performance, and they also address the fact that they can find security threats and allow people to identify security threats and be proactive to those security threats when they call in. Now, the interesting thing about Nice Systems is that they support Nortel, Cisco, Avaya, all of the name brands. You can link up the voice recording with other tools in line like IM and screen lookups, so you can build these elaborate models for analyzing call content with other data sources. And then they've also got a module that if you want to write a check big enough, you can tie that straight into an SAS analytical package so you can do statistics to your heart's content. Now the baseline analytics package from these, that's about 100 grand, but obviously installing Coral is much cheaper. Again, voice storage, everybody's storing data. You can do a single PC, PC type box, running Windows XP, record up to 48 calls on it, 55,000 hours of video on it. And then Nice thinks that everybody should store things, and you look at the customer trends, you look at the trends in the enterprise space today, everybody's got an IP PBX is thinking about storing their calls because they think they can do something with the data. Okay, again, commercial volume. Let's get those liability requirements. Just liability requirements real quick. Why do people record or get neurotic about it? People in the health and care industry have the HIPAA regulations. They feel they have to track communications to ensure confidentiality of information. From a financial perspective, companies want to monitor for leakage of information, for insider trading. And then you've got Sarbanes-Oxley. So everybody's paranoid about what the requirements for Sarbanes-Oxley are. So lawyers have skewed things to overkill. So companies are now providing audit trails of calls and monitoring. Okay. And we talked about that. Well, how do you use all these techniques to defend against social engineering? An interesting data point when I was going researching, there's a company called Vocent. Anybody from Vocent? No? They had a white paper on their website that said social engineering and identity theft, how criminals exploit your call center. That white paper is now removed from their website. Social engineering, a lot of times, is the way in order to break security. An outside caller impersonates an insider or calls in and tries to get information such as phone numbers, passwords, websites, things like that, names of equipment. So they can gather a number of pieces of information so they can build a mosaic that they can use to ultimately direct their attacks and break into systems. And despite written procedures, user education, public flogging in some cases, just kidding. Social engineering is still an effective way to breach corporate security. But if you're monitoring all phone calls and you're recording all phone calls through an IP PBX, all of a sudden you've got a bunch of software tools you can apply to that IP PBX, such as whitelisting, blacklisting, word spotting, and voice analytics to spot attacks and in some cases be able to respond to them in near real time. We're not talking about blue sky technology. Again, you've got larger organizations using voice analytics today. So building this is as simple as plugging in a server and analyzing recorded phone calls or analyzing calls in real time. The toughest task is building a rule set to look at words, look at conversations, and being able to dig through them. The one key thing is that the secret sauce here is the most expensive part of voice analytics is that, again, that speech-to-text engine, being able to do that well and do that in real time or fast enough to be near real time, that's pretty expensive. So larger organizations are first implementing this, again, larger call centers. But as the price goes down, you're going to start to see more and more people analyze inbound calls. Whitelist, voice print identification. Again, my voice is my passport. That's the most common use today when you talk about analyzing phone calls for security purposes. And right now, most companies are using it as an in-house to either authenticate people who are outside, who call in all the time, such as technicians or IT staff. And some of them, the more stricter ones, are using them to authenticate all staff who call in. Again, lawyers, the paranoid. But whitelisting or voice print is becoming more important because you can spoof caller ID. I mean, it's almost de facto standard. I don't want to say de facto standard, but pretty much that you can spoof caller ID pretty much 6 different. I don't want to say 6 different ways, but a number of different ways. So you can't use caller ID to authenticate people. You need to have another thing, and that other thing is going to be voice print. Blacklist. If you know who your bad actors are, if you know that somebody's, somebody's been, if you can identify somebody who's trying to defraud you, and you know their voice print, you can use that voice print to filter through calls and identify that person and block them out of the system. You could either use, if you're using voice print as a blacklist, you could either flag or deny somebody access to the rest of the phone system, or if you want to be cruel, you can send them into voice-attended hell, and they just have to go 4 or 3 and try to reach a real person. Blacklist with sharing is also interesting. More and more insurance companies realize that if they've got somebody trying to defraud them 5 to 10, one insurance company realizes that you've got somebody trying to defraud them, then their competitors also have that problem. It's in their best interest to identify that bad actor and make sure that neither one of them get ripped off. So more and more insurance companies are starting to share that data. Word spotting. Again, you can build a vocabulary of words that can get monitored and looked for. If you have somebody calling in and they're asking for a password, or they're asking for user logins, or they're asking for more sensitive information like, can you tell me the phone number of the CEO? I need to get a hold of them because it's an emergency. Anybody who's trying to run a social engineering attack may make more than one phone call to see if he can get the information. And he's going to ask basically the same question. If you can identify keywords, then you can search for a vocabulary of words that'll set off flags, and you can go ahead and take further action. And if you cross-match that with caller ID, assuming caller ID is not spoofed, I mean, if somebody's asking about passwords and they're, on a phone across the street or a phone that I can't identify, then that's an obvious flag that there's something wrong.